Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Wood by Wright live Q&A. This is September 20th, 2017. And I do want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. First of all, you guys are the reason why I make these Q&As. And it's because of your support that I now put these out once a month. So thank you for that. If you'd like to find out more, I'll leave more information on that description below. But basically, we're going to be answering your questions. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments here, and I will answer them as I can get to them. Hopefully, I can make it down through. This usually lasts 45 minutes to an hour or so, depending upon how long or how many questions you guys have. So go ahead and list those down, and I will go through them. Hey, Matthew, how's it going? Good to have you on here. Other ideas, if you are not watching this live and you're watching it as recorded, you can look down in the description, and a little while after it goes out, I will put all of the questions and put timestamps on them so you can go roughly to where that question is in the chat. So hopefully that will be out there. So as I'm answering questions, I take a moment in between each question to put them onto a sheet so I can make sure they're in the descriptions. So if any of you have the questions, let me know. I am here to answer them, and I'm hoping to have a lot of fun here. This week I finished up the French cleats on the wall. Some of you have seen those in the video that came out yesterday. Hopefully the video on the French cleats will come out Saturday. That's one I'm really looking forward to, because I kind of had to think through, how do you rip an angle on a board over 8 foot long? And it was kind of a little bit of a mind-twisting idea, and asked a few people for ideas, and got a few good answers. And I'm looking forward to putting that video up. So let's see. Yesterday's video was how to sharpen a hand plane. One video I probably should have put out a while ago, but for some reason it just came out. And then tomorrow's video will be on how do you mate a chip breaker to an iron, and how do you get a nice clean fit on there. So I'm looking forward to those. Into some questions. Let's see. Yes, just for those you see, I have the office wall. I got the rest of the boards to go all the way up. I kind of like how it came out. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do for decoration back there. So if any of you have any idea, let me know. I do like putting up some of my bibs, the races that I'm a little more proud of, I guess. I don't know, but I might end up putting some carving or other things up on the wall, things that I've done. Excuse me. To answer one of the questions that I got recently, how do you mate a chip breaker to an iron? Now, I will be going over this in tomorrow's video in much greater detail, but there's two common issues that people are going to have. Number one, you'll notice when you're planing along, it suddenly jams up and all the chips are crushed into the chip breaker and the iron. And some people think that that's because their mouth isn't big enough, so they're opening up the mouth, or they're moving the frog back, and that's not the right answer most of the time. Most of the time it's because the chip breaker itself, it has that bow on it, isn't fitting well to the iron. And that can be because there's a gap between the chip breaker and the iron. Sometimes it's touching on the two tips, but not in the middle. And so chips can get in there and go between the two. That's probably the most common, and you can actually use it on a stone to grind out the bottom and make it fit nicely. The other problem is that a lot of times the chip breaker has a flat spot, or even a slightly concave spot that the chips can get in, and they just kind of crush up on the front of it. And so that you fix by grinding the outside of the chip breaker as opposed to the inside. And basically you want that whole thing to come to a point as if it was sharpened, but you don't have to really worry about it being sharp as long as it comes to a point. But yeah, I'll be covering that in more detail. That I've been asked several times recently. Hey Whip, how's it going? Love the spoke shave video. Well, thank you. That's one I'm really proud of, and I'm kind of happy with. And I've actually talked to a few people who recently have come across good deals on eBay for the chip breaker, or the spoke shave blades. They're not as common as they used to be, but they are out there. So yeah, I'm thinking about making another one here soon. I'd like to make one with a modern kit with the screws in the back as opposed to the prongs that hold it in, but we'll see how that goes. I don't know. So any questions, let me know in the chat here, and I will answer them live. I'm looking forward to it. Hey Matt, how's it going? Good to have you up here. I need to get in touch with you sometime. I think to see if you have a slab I can buy. I have a dining room table coming up, and I might have a need for something else. So yeah, I'll have to contact you. Thanks for being here. Oh, thanks, Web. I love finding that that people like the videos. It's still kind of a surprising thing to me when someone says, I love your videos. I've learned a lot. I'm still kind of putting these videos out for my own fun. This is a hobby for me that I am enjoying, and so thank you for those of you who actually like them. It still surprises me there's other crazy people out there who like hand tools. But yeah, where do you get your lumber? I actually have an entire video on where to get lumber and some of the places I've found cheap or where I've made lumber. Most of the time I am getting lumber from Craigslist, places that I find around. Like someone will have a load of white oak for sale, and I will go and buy a ton of it and work on it for years. I still have a stack of white oak that I've been working on for almost 2 years now. Excuse me. I have developed a relationship with a couple different local sawyers, guys who have their own saw and mill up logs. Building a relationship with those are great. You'll find them on Craigslist quite a bit. Most of the lumber I get, I wait for that big find, which happens like once a year, once every other year, and I'll buy 400 or 500 board feet at 50 cents to $1 a board foot, and I'll work on that lumber for a long time to come. I've had 2 of those in the last 2 years, which I've been very fortunate. One of them I actually was able to trade work for the lumber. Yeah, I like that. So thanks. That's from the Hooded Woodworker. I like the name. When looking at using planes on eBay, when looking at sorry, I'm horrible at reading apparently. Looking at used planes on eBay, what should you be looking for? Wow. That's actually kind of a. I hate giving advice on this topic because until you know what you're looking for in a hand plane, looking at eBay is kind of a scary thing. And I can tell you, you should look for something that has all its parts. You should look for something that's restorable. But number one, you don't know what all the parts are until you're familiar with a plane. Number two, you don't know if it's restorable until you've restored several hand planes. And so that's why I generally tell people to go and buy the $5 and $10 junk hand planes you find at estate sales and antique stores that are rusted beyond belief, and restore them. And even if you can't completely restore them, the process of restoring a hand plane will teach you what all you are looking for. What are the parts you're looking for? What makes it easy to restore and what makes it hard to restore? And until you've done that, I really can't explain all of the intricacies and all the hundreds of little things that you'd be looking for. So usually that's my advice. Go get a junk hand plane, even if it's not something you're going to be using. Try and restore it and try and make it kind of usable. And in doing so, you will have taught yourself all that you need to know to go out and buy what you're looking for. So hope that answers your question. That was from No. I like the name. Let me throw this over here so I have it for the future. That was round 08. Sorry about this. I'm trying to record this so that people can find it later. Yeah, you do have a few slabs lying around, Matt. I'll have to hit that up. To get up to your place again sometime. I haven't been up to the Twin Cities in a while. John Pitchko bought the cheapest smoothing plane from Home Depot. The blade always seems to be angled. I need to put the rear lever all the way to the right to make it kind of straight. Your thoughts? My thoughts. Number one, the plane is junk. That there really isn't a good way of saying it other than most big box store planes. I haven't found a plane at a big box store that I trust or use or would ever suggest anyone using. There's just so many items on the amount of work you have to put in to make it usable, and then the amount of work you have to keep putting into it to make it stay usable is just it's not worth it. Yeah, it's a pain. But that problem of having a skewed blade is because when you sharpen it, or when it was originally sharpened, the tip is probably not 90 degrees to the if the blade itself is off at an angle, well, then you have to cant the blade in the plane to make the flat edge flat with the sole of the plane. And so when you're sharpening it, you want to make sure you keep that at 90 degrees to the side of the iron. Now, with your plane, that might actually be a problem with the plane itself. The lateral adjuster or the frog may be weirdly twisted so that it is constantly at the wrong angle. And without looking at that plane, I can't answer it specifically for you. But most of the time, it's because the sharpening is off. The blade is not 90 degrees to the side of the blade. So definitely take a look at that. If any of you have questions, I'll leave them in the chat, and I will get to them. I'll be making my way down through it slowly. So I have 2 chipped lever caps. Looks like someone dropped them or used them as a screwdriver. Yeah, that's always a problem. Should I worry about wood chips getting jammed? And should the chip breaker take care of most of that issue? Yeah, a chipped lever cap is really not much of a problem unless it's chipped more than like 1/3 or a half of the chip breaker is missing. That's not going to cause you a problem. Chips don't get jammed in there that will cause work issues. So yeah, don't worry about it unless it's missing most of the material up there at the front. That was from Matthew Dobbins. Dobbins, I think I'm saying that right. And that was at 12. Keeping track of these. Hello from Southern California, Abel. Hey, need to get out there sometime. I haven't been to California in a while. Need that. Where do you get your chisels and gouges? This is from Whiplash. Where do I get them? Chisels, I like to buy the cheap chisels. I have 2 sets that I usually use, and one of them are from Aldi, the grocery store. Excuse me. And right now, if you are lucky, your Aldi has a set or 2 of those chisels. They only put them out once a year. Usually they're around Father's Day, but they just came out this last week. So yes, you can get those. Those are actually fairly decent steal on the chisels. It's like $7 for a set of 4. And they're good. They are actually my go-to daily use chisels. The next thing you want to look for in chisels is what is the handle. That is the most important thing, far more important than the chisel. Does the handle feel comfortable to you? Is it a nice handle? Is it something you can use a mallet on? Is it what you want in a chisel? So choose a chisel by its handle. Now, a lot of people out there are going to be, no, you got to look for the steel. You got to look for the good steel. No. Once you have used chisels for a few years and you know what a dull chisel feels like, and you know what a sharp chisel feels like, and you know how to tell how fast it's getting dull, then you might want a better steel that will hold its edge a little longer. But for most cases, that's actually one of the Harbor Freight tools that I generally I'm okay with people buying. The Harbor Freight set of 6 chisels that you can get with a wooden handle. I really like those. I actually use them. They're my secondary set. So going expensive on chisels, I really don't. I don't have a problem with that. Gouges, on the other hand, carving tools, do not buy the Harbor Freight carving tool set. That is a bunch of pointy steel items on the end of wooden sticks. They're trash. And no matter how much you spend on them, they will never turn into carving tools. There are 2 brands that I usually suggest. One is Peffel. You'll find those at woodcraft stores. They're made in Swiss. They're Swiss made in Sweden. Swiss. They're Swiss made. They have a lifetime guarantee on them. They are fairly pricey at $30 to $45 a piece. And that scares a lot of people off. But they are fantastic. They are sharp from the store, and they will treat you well for the rest of your life and the rest of your kids' lives. If taken care of, they are fantastic, and they're worth every penny of it. The other one I use a lot of is 2 Cherries. 2 Cherries is a little bit cheaper in price, but fantastic in quality. They come sharp, and they will last you the rest of your life as well. I use those quite extensively, and I have several sets for them, and I really like them. Those are usually going to be like the $25 to $35 a piece, so they're a little cheaper. They're still going to cost you a bit, but they're worth every penny. So definitely take a look at that. Hey, Scott, got your Scott just sent me a package of scraps of maple and a few other things. I really like those, and a bunch of cut nails. I'm really looking forward to using those. And if any of you guys have suggestions, I want to do a project with cut nails and do cut nail joinery. So if any of you have something you want to see, let me know. I'd like to hear that. But thanks, Scott. Those were extremely cool. What kind of plywood do you use? This is from Anton Severe. I think I said that right. I generally don't use plywood. Plywood and hand tools, I don't have a problem with using it, but it requires a lot more work. Every cut you make is a cross-grain situation. You're just plywood is a pain with hand tools, and I would rather join up solid boards and use those than work with plywood. So I've never used plywood in this shop. I have used 1/4-inch plywood for a couple drawer bottoms on other projects, but even then, I usually go with solid wood. So I don't usually use plywood. When I used to do shop furniture and things like that out of plywood, I really liked Pure Bond 3/4. Their voidless plywood is fantastic, and I really like it. I don't have any problems against using plywood. It's a pain with hand tools, and it's so much easier and more gratifying and useful to use solid wood than plywood, and so that's why I generally stick with solid wood. Grizzly makes shockingly decent hand planes that are very inexpensive. I have never actually used the Grizzly hand planes. I've heard good things about them. I've heard they're on par with Wood River. I've never had a chance to use them, so I can't say one way or the other. But yes, I have heard good things about them. But yeah, I don't know. One of these days I might see if I can get a set and play with them, but I don't know. What was your first project? My first main project was my workbench, and that's usually what I would suggest. This is from Mr. Can. I actually just put out a video last week on what I suggest most people what most people should build as their first project, and kind of went through my whole series of what did I build. I really suggest people build their bench first. I know that is daunting to a lot of people, and wow, that's a big thing, but a bench is actually a very easy thing to do. All the joinery is huge, so it makes it very easy to make it accurate. Bigger joints tend to be a little easier than smaller joints, and once you have the bench, then everything becomes so much easier, because it's very hard to build the bench, very hard to build other things without a bench. Along the way, you may end up finding yourself building a few tools, such as a mallet or winding sticks or clamps, things that help you get the job done, and building the bench. So take it a step at a time and work your way through it, and you'll be surprised at how easy it actually is. But yes, a bench is really the first project I suggest. And then after that, find your dream project. What do you really want to build? What's that big project you want to build? And then break that down into all the steps and work towards building that project. Whether it is an Elizabethan highboy or a simple modern coffee table, any one of those can be a great first main project. So yeah, just break it down into each individual step and take them one at a time, and you can build anything you want. And I do mean that, anything you want. Thanks. Looking forward to the better quality hand plane from a proper store. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have a whole lot of money to spend, the new Stanley Sweetheart series, I have 2 of their hand planes, and I really like them. For the price, they're very good. Wood River is a fairly good price for what you get. They're decent stuff. I've heard good things about the Grizzly. Yeah. Go for it. Give it a try. Switzerland. Thank you. Yes. I have a plane with grooves in the bottom. What is that for? From Cruz Country Fitness and Physical Therapy. The grooves in the bottom are called corrugation or corrugated. It's a corrugated plane. So if it's a Stanley, it would be a Stanley number 5C or whatever number it would be. And that C stands for corrugation. Originally, Stanley put the grooves in the bottom of the plane and published it as being easier to push. It takes less force to push, but physics don't actually work that way. It takes the same amount of force because you're putting more pressure on a smaller area with the corrugation, whereas opposed to less pressure with the smooth, larger surface. And yeah, the corrugation was a gimmick in that method. Now in restoration, though, the corrugation is really nice because it makes it very easy to flatten the bottom. It makes it very easy because there's less material you have to take off. So a lot of people really like the corrugated planes, and in the collecting world, the corrugated planes actually cost a bit more, and more people want them for that because they're a little bit rarer. There aren't quite as many of them. Rarer, harder to find. But some people like them more. For me personally, I prefer a smooth bottom for an actual user. It just becomes a little bit more, you can put more oil or wax in the bottom, and that actually makes it smooth a little bit better. So hope that answered your question. Do you have any recommendations on tap and die sets for wood? Well, I only know of one company that makes them, and I can't even remember the company name. But if you go on Amazon, and I have links to most of those. Actually, one of the videos I'm going to be doing soon is building a wooden screw, screwed in vise, with the two screws running through the two chops of the vise. And so I'll be having more detail on the ones I use out there. But they're actually not that hard to make either, especially if you have a screw with the threads you want. You can make a tap out of any screw. And then once you have the tap, then you can make a die and a cutter to match that. And hopefully I'll be doing a video on that in the future. But recommendations on tap and die sets for wood, I don't know of any other brand other than the one you commonly find on Amazon. Sorry. Move that over here. Have you ever used some of the Felder group machines? Oh, Felder. No, actually, I've never used a Felder tool. I would love to. They're cool. They're expensive, but no, I've never played with Felder tools. Yeah. Excuse me. What's your favorite kind of vise? That is a loaded question. My favorite vise is probably the one I'm using at the moment. I have, I think it's 9 vices in my shop now. I like the twin screw vise from Veritas. I think that's my most commonly used vise now. It's the end face vise I have on my current bench. I really love the Hovarder quick vise leg vise. That is, I'm using that far more than I expected. That is very cool. I really like my old quick face vise on my old bench. That was probably the fastest vise I have, and very enjoyable. I really like that one. Wooden screw. I love the what is it? Hard maple. Acer Ferris. There we are. It's sold by Rose Toolworks. And I love that wooden screw. It's on my old bench, and beautiful, beautiful screw. Great work on there. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I like all different kinds of vices, different vices for different uses. You can do things in a moxon that you can't do in a leg vise. You can do things in a leg vise that you can't do in a face vise. You can do things on a face vise that you can't do on an end vise. And the list goes on and on. So yeah, my best advice is to have many of them. You can never have enough vices. Just finished my bench. Looks really good. I think I don't even want to use it because of how nice it looks. Yeah, a lot of people have a worry about that. I don't know why, but I made my bench look really nice and pretty. But I still have lots of dings in it, and I think the dings and cuts and things like that give it character. I probably put scratches and dings into it before it was completed, so don't worry about it. Have fun. How about a toolbox carrying with a basic set of hand tools? I've actually thought about that. I've thought about doing like a Japanese toolbox, something like that with cut nails. I might want to to try that. It'll probably end up being a box or something I make with the cut nails. That's really where they shine, and you get to see it. Or possibly even creeved nails, where they bend over. Not creeved. I can't remember what the term is, where you bend it over and put it back into itself. But yeah. Do I need a low angle jack for shooting end grain? I built a shooting board with my number 5, and it's not working very well. Do you need it? No. A well set up number 5 will do very well. A low angle plane will work a little bit better. That's where the low angle really shines, is on end grain. But for a long time, I used a bevel down plane on my shooting board. It comes down to how well set up is your plane. You need to be taking a very, very, very small cut, much, much smaller than most people expect. The blade has got to be sharp. You've got to have a freshly sharpened plane, and it will do just as well as the low angle will. The downside is it's got to be set up as if it were a smoothing plane to do a really nice clean job on it. So do you need a low angle plane? No. Does a low angle plane make it easier? Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. That was Craig Meaney. Probably messed that up. Sorry, Craig. Yeah, Scott brought up the Wood Whisperers set of taps. Yes, they have wood taps. They don't have a die set, but they're for standard bolt threads. So you can thread bolts into wood. And I really like them. I mean, you can use any normal die and any normal tap to tap wood, but the Wood Whisperer set actually are a lot more efficient for wood. They're designed for wood as opposed to designed for metal that you use in wood. But I think what he was talking about with tap and die sets, he's referring to like the larger diameter, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch diameter tap and die sets, which is what I like to play with. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was talking about smaller bolt sizes. Do you plan on starting wood turning? This is from AlexanderTES. Yes, I am actually planning on making a lathe come early October. So hopefully the end of this month, I will actually start working on that. And I may end up putting aside the tool wall and finishing that up to get the lathe done. And one of the reasons for that is a lathe is fantastic for Christmas presents because you can turn out things very, very quickly on a lathe. And it's really not that hard. And I want to actually do a one-day build where I have everything set up and I've gotten everything I need, and I can build an entire functioning lathe in a single day. And I think that'll make a really cool video. So hopefully that one will be coming out early October. So thank you, Alexander, for that one. Yes, I do want to get back into wood turning. I used to do it when I had a power tool shop, and it's a very enjoyable thing because you can pump out a project instantly. You want to give a gift to someone, you can turn a pin or a bowl or something of that nature very quickly. And yeah, it's a fun tool to have. So I will be getting into more turning. How do you go about sharpening a concave surface like a chair bottom or a bowl? Shaping, not sharpening. There are many different ways of doing that. The most common is with an adze or with a travisher. An adze is basically if you take an axe, so you have your handle and the blade is like this, and adze takes the blade and turns it in 90 degrees. Most of the time it's also slightly curved, especially for a bowl adze. Actually, hang on a second. Let me grab one. Ow! Ha! I'm back. That's an adze. This is a big adze. Ooh, it's a spider. Look at that. And this one is larger. It's more for like what do you call it? Farmhouse joinery. What's the word I'm looking for? I've forgotten the word. Big joinery. So you can flatten out a surface. This one, the handle is bad on it, and I got to make a new one for it. But I got this for I think $5 at a garage sale. So this you can swing between your feet and flatten out a log, but smaller ones with more curved will fit nicely into it. Let's see. The hand tool school, Renaissance Woodworker, Shannon Rogers, he's going to be doing a few videos soon on that. He just got one from Black Bear Forge, which I am extremely jealous. Looks really cool. A travisher is basically a spoke shave, except for it is cupped, and there's a big bow that sticks out of the spoke shave, so you can get in there and work in it. Now, if you're talking about something like the inside of my shoes, which I don't have my feet right now, those you might want to use a hook knife. And so it's like a knife where the blade's straight up, but at the end, the blade hooks over. And so you have this sharp edge you can get in and gouge out. And so you can get like into the toe of a shoe and carve out with that. So those are 3 tools that make carving inside concave surfaces a lot easier. A travisher is such a fun tool to use, though. Those are great for like carving seat bottoms. Yeah, lots of fun. Yes, I do have a lot of vices. How do you manage small children and fitting time into doing woodwork? Well, my kids are really one of the big reasons why I got into hand tools. Number 1, there is less dust. Number 2, it is safer in the shop. And number 3, there is less noise. And so I can have the kids in the shop with me. And so I have a bench for them, and they'll be over on their bench banging around and making noise and having things like that while I'm working at my bench. And so my kids can actually be in the shop with me. And it makes it a really good thing. The other nice thing is that I can spend like 10-15 minutes on a project and go and check on the kids, and then 10-15 minutes and go and check on the kids. Or I can do that in between different things. So like we'll play a game with the kids or something of that nature. And it's a lot of little things. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth with working with kids in the shop. And yes, it can be a challenge, but it can also be a lot of fun, especially once you get the kids interested in making something and working in the shop. That becomes a lot of fun, because then they're interested in what you're doing and they want to have a part of it and they want to make something, and that is always a lot of fun. So yeah, get the kids interested, and the quicker you can get them interested, the more time you can spend in the shop, because the more time they want to spend in the shop. Oh, sorry, still getting over bronchitis. I've had this for like 3 weeks now. A lot of little things hacking up. That question was from Jon Sommers. Reading down thing. Could you reverse the bevel on a number 5? This is from Richard Ritter. And create a low angle bevel. No, because if you turn the bevel over on a number 5, it would go from a 45-degree angle to a 75-degree angle. And you would create a really, really high angle plane. Because you have on the plane, you have 45-degree bed for the iron that sits on, and it cuts at 45 degrees because the bevel is down. So the cutting surface of the plane is still at 45 degrees. It's parallel with the frog. So if you flip it over, then the bevel is up, and the bevel will then increase your angle from the frog to whatever your bevel angle. So if you sharpen your blades at 30 degrees, it would become a total of 75 degrees. So no, that doesn't work. And really, until sorry, 33, until like the probably the turn of the last century, almost all planes were bevel down. You did everything with bevel down. There really wasn't a reason to do anything else. Then Stanley, and a few others came out with the 62. And the 62 was the first really popular bevel up low angle plane. And it was designed for finishing off butcher blocks, refinishing butcher blocks, because you had all that ingrain of a large surface. Having that really low angle did fantastic things. Now, another way you can do that is you can get a lower angle frog. And so with a low angle plane, you have like a 12-degree bed, and then you have a 25-degree angle on your chip on your iron. So total you have like a 37-degree angle. Well, that's really only 8 degrees less than you would have with your standard bevel down plane. So if you get a frog that's lower, so if you get a frog that's at like 35 degrees, you can get a bevel down low angle plane. And that is a plane that has an even lower angle than a low angle jack or a low angle plane, because its actual cutting angle would be at like 35 degrees as opposed to the 38 degrees of the low angle plane. But that's a time for another story. One of these days, I actually want to make a low angle bevel down plane. They're kind of fun. So I hope that answered your question. If not, let me know and I'll try and answer it again. What kind of lathe, spring pull or treadle? From Make Brooklyn. I'm hoping to, well, first I'm going to make a spring pull lathe. Spring pull lathes are just a ton of fun. They're great for greenwood. They're great for like Windsor chairs and things like that. They are enjoyable. They're a skill to learn, because only 50% of the cut is it actually cutting, because it's returning and then going forward and then returning. And a spring pull lathe is a lot of fun. So I'm probably going to be starting with a spring pull lathe for the one-day build. A spring pull lathe will probably be the way to go. They're very easy to make, and yeah, that'll be fun. But eventually, I do want to make a treadle lathe. I want to make basically a power unit, a large flywheel that I can impart a lot of energy to getting that flywheel up and running. And then be able to connect different tools to it. So like the scroll saw that I'm going to be restoring here soon, and a treadle lathe, and possibly even like a table saw or a joiner that I can connect up to make them all foot powered. So those will be coming in the future though. Yeah, a lot of things in woodworking cause addiction, but hand tools can also cause addiction. Timber framing. Thank you. Timber framing. Yes. My brain doesn't like to work. Started wood turning about 3 years ago and can't stop. It's a lot of fun. I used to do a lot of turning, and I enjoyed it, and I will probably enjoy it again. And there are a lot of things that you can really do with woodworking that require turning. And it's one of those things that once you master it and you get used to it and you get past the bug that's bitten you, which everyone kind of gets into that, you know, like several months to a year of your life, everything you do is turning and all you do is turning. And then there's some people who that's all they do for the rest of their life. But once you get past that and you go back to doing some regular woodworking, you find that you can fit all these turned items into woodworking, and it becomes a cool balance between the two. Hey, Tom Spillany. Tom, am I saying your last name right, Spillany? Let me know. I'm probably butchering it. I often butcher names. Richard Ryder. Okay, cool. Thanks. Sorry, I've been mispronouncing your last name in my head for a while. Which size planes would you recommend for setting up as smoothers or jack planes? I actually did a video on plane numbers a while ago, going through the Stanley 1 through 9, which are their basic planes. And for a smoothing plane, you want something that's shorter. A lot of people like the number 3. I personally like a number 4 for a smoothing plane, because for a smoothing plane, you're not actually flattening the surface. You're just getting rid of imperfections. So you want the plane to be able to go up through the hills and valleys of the wood. So a smaller plane works great for that. A jack plane traditionally is a number 5, and that is kind of like the in-between. You can still smooth with the jack plane. It's short enough that it will ride through a lot of the hills and valleys, but it's still long enough that you can joint most things. And I would probably joint most boards up to, like, 3.5, maybe 4 foot with a number 5 and be perfectly good. So the number 5 is kind of that great, and that's why it's called the jack plane. It's the jack of all trades in the plane. I do use a number 4.5 quite a bit. It is kind of my go-to general use plane for I just need to take material off. I usually have my number 4.5 set up for a heavy kerf. It takes a wider piece off, and I can just mill through material fairly quickly. I have a 5.5. I haven't restored it, so I haven't used one in a while. And I don't know if I would. I think like the 5.5 and the 6 are kind of the planes that I almost never use, because anything you can do with the 5.5 or the 6, the 7 can do better, or the 5 can do better. And I don't know, I just haven't had much need for either of them, so I don't use the 5.5 or 6 very often. So yeah, for smoothing, I prefer a 4. A lot of people prefer a 3. It depends on what you like. I have a little bit larger hands, so I like a 4. A 3 starts to get kind of crampy and tight on my hands. And for the jack plane, that's the number 5. Tips on making chisel handles without a lathe. Would like to replace the crappy handles on my Kobalt chisels. Yes, actually, I love octagonal blades, octagonal handles. Whenever I make a handle, I like to make them octagonally shaped. And I did that with my pen, which is not here. Oh well. I really don't like rounded handles for chisels. That's just a personal preference, so I don't use the lathe for that. So you start with a square block, and then you mark out where you want the 4 corners to be taken off at 45 degrees. So you make a mark on either end, and then you put that block in your vise, and you plane down until you've met those lines on either end, and you have a nice flat surface across, and then you have an octagon. And just a simple straight octagon works great. If you want to taper it, then you just take each side one by one and taper off that end one by one on each side, and you can slowly taper it down to the shape you want. And I really like the feel of that. It gives you the grip, so you can hold it, you can twist it, you can turn it, but it also it feels good. That's just my personal preference. So yeah, octagon is a great handle. Hello from Romania. Wow, long ways out. Thanks. Mario Gata. Sorry, I'm a name butcher. It's like spill lane. Cool. Thanks, Tom. I'll try and remember that. Running out of questions here, so I might wrap up here. Unless you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and we're getting close to the end here. Our son was just in Romania. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, see you later, Richard. Glad you could be here. So I think we're running out, and that's about it. Unless you have any questions, let me know. Things I have coming up here. I'm going to be hopefully getting the saw till built and the plane till built in the next couple weeks, and then starting in on the spring pull lathe. And I'm really looking forward to all 3 of those projects. I really want to kind of get those out here soon. Also, let me know. I'm thinking about switching over to 2 videos a week, and doing like one serious build video and the other video either being like just a music, light video that people like watching just to watch, and being of the build, or having that second video being some specific technique or something needed to make that build. So let me know if you like that idea of going to 2 videos a week. Yeah, we'll see. So let me see if there's any other questions here. What carving tools do you recommend? I actually mentioned that earlier, so if you want to go back and look at it, but as a quick reference, don't get anything cheap. If you're spending less than like 20 bucks on a carving tool, it's not going to be worth it for you. Two Cherries and Peffel, P-F-E-L-E, I believe it is spelled. Those are the 2 brands I really like. Peffel you can get at Woodcraft, and Two Cherries you can buy on Amazon. I love both of them. Definitely go look at them. You're going to spend a little bit of money for them, but they're worth every penny of it. And there really isn't anything cheaper for carving tools. Do you use hide glue much? I haven't used hide glue much in a while. I do like hide glue. It is great for when you have those stressful glue ups. It lasts a little bit longer. There's a little bit more slide to it. Unless you're using traditional heated hide glue, then you have a time issue. Hide glue is I like hide glue. I use it quite a bit. With a number 7, 2 number 5s, and 2 number 4s, how would you set them up for daily use? With the 2 number 4s, I would have one of them set up for a really, really fine smoothing. So in other words, very light cut, chip breaker set very close to the tip, mouth closed up as much as possible, very, very finely set, and only used for finishing, only used on the last bit, the last plane to touch the wood. And then I'd have another one set up with the chip breaker a little bit farther back, about a 1/16 inch away from the tip, a fairly well opened mouth, and a little bit deeper cut. And that one is the one I use for just, I want to get material off quickly. I like a number 4 for that. 2 number 5s, number 1, I would turn one of them into a scrub plane, camber the iron very heavily. I have a video on how to make a oh, sorry. I have a video on how to make a scrub plane. You just put a very heavy camber on it, open the mouth up as big as you can, and that's used for taking off massive amounts of material very quickly, leaving a very rough surface. And the other one I use for a medium cut to a heavier cut with a smooth blade, much like the second number 4 for taking material off. For the number 7, I have that set up, and I usually switch that back and forth. Sometime when I'm jointing and I want to take off a lot, I'll screw it down, take a little bit deeper cut. And then when I'm doing my very last jointing smooth, I'll lighten it up and take smoother cuts as I go. So hope that answered your question. What diamond stones do you use? Do you recommend the video that you talked about them? I don't remember the video that you talked about them. I've actually talked about them in several videos. I've done several videos recently where I talked about them in how to sharpen a chisel. The one just yesterday with how to sharpen a hand plane. But I did a video a while ago on making the sharpening station. So if you search for Wood by Wright sharpening station, I'll have links to the exact stones I use there, as well as the 2 most recent sharpening videos. I have links to those stones there. They're DMT 8x3 inch. I use extra coarse, fine, and extra fine. Those, yeah, that's what I use. So hope that answered your question. Best way to refinish a brace handle. I like to scrape off the old varnish and put on boiled linseed oil and paste wax. I love the feel of boiled linseed oil and paste wax. Some people like to sand off the finish. I like to scrape it off. Personal preferences, but yeah, hope that answers your question. Another question. I have a problem getting good hard lumber for my workbench. Building one soon. Is spruce valuable? Yeah, actually, my first bench is made of Douglas fir, which is a fairly soft wood, and I really like it. Having a soft bench is not a problem that most people think it is, because if you're building something on there and you accidentally bump a board on the bench, you don't want the bench to ding up your wood. So if you're using something like hard maple, but you're working on, you know, a softer thing like mahogany, the hard maple bench will ding up the hot mahogany wood, and you don't want to do that. So yeah, softer benches, not a problem. My first bench was made out of stud grade 2x4s. So the cheap junky wood lumber that I got from the big box store works great. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. I hope that answered your questions, and think I'm going to wrap it up here. So this has been a lot of fun. Hoping to be doing one of these every month. And I want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. I just actually put out a video to just my patrons on Patreon, because they reached a new level where I make a video once a month just for them. So it's like a 25-minute detailed how-to video on making a drawing bow or a compass bow. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And thank you to the patrons on Patreon. If you want to find out more about that, I'll leave a link to it down in the description. But that's about it. And until next time, have a wonderful day.